You are listening to the Average Pundits podcast. Don't forget to like and share this video.
Hi guys, and welcome back to the Average Pundits podcast, your home for all things Premier League. We have a very exciting episode looking at West Ham, obviously a club with absolutely extraordinary recent success. And at the end of this podcast, we will be announcing the winner of the Mystic Box giveaway. So you want to tune into that and make sure you have a look, because you never know, you might have won a free shirt. So tune in at the end of the podcast to see. But as always, I am joined with Reese. How you doing, Reese?
Good. I'm excited. I want to know if I've won the Mystic Mystery Box shirt. Oh wait, I can't. Oh, such a shame. But you can. You can.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's worth sticking around for the end of the podcast. Make sure that you are on the edge of your seat. Make sure you watch the entire thing, of course, because you might as well while you're here. So yeah, let's go into the come on, you Irons. Yeah, I mean they've been tearing it up, haven't they?
Come on, you Irons, indeed. Yeah, they've been going crazy. They've been going absolutely crazy. They're currently fourth in the Premier League, and they've been on an absolute madness. I mean, at the moment, obviously, this Premier League is wide open in terms of positions from first down. I think at the moment it looks like City are kind of running away with it, but anything down from first position, it's so open, and West Ham have capitalised on that massively. So in this podcast, we're going to take you through some of their players that have been performing really well so far in the season. We're going to take you through some of the signings they could hope to make coming up fairly soon, some of the players they signed and how good they've been. So without further ado, I think we'll jump into it straight away. I've got some of the stats up on my screen here that I'm looking at from some of their key players, and a bit like how we did in the Man City podcast. If you haven't seen that, go and check that podcast out. We're going to go through some of the key players that have been instrumental to West Ham's success so far this season. So we'll start with their top goal scorer, who will appear quite a lot on this list for different areas, who has been nothing short of fantastic for them. Obviously, a loan signing, which they made permanent in the summer. And that's a central defensive midfielder in Thomas Souček, he's got 8 goals for West Ham, who's their top goal scorer, which is 8 goals from the midfield and from a holding midfield position. It's crazy.
It is. A guy like Souček, who's I think he's like just about to turn 26. Like, so he's not even hit like his prime yet. And I think that we're seeing some of the best work that Souček has done. I think West Ham it was insane for them to make this movement, the loan move permanent. And I was just like, you know what, why didn't anyone else figure this out? And yeah, I think he's made 38 appearances for them so far. 11 goals for them, I think, and 8 of those have been this season. So who knows if he can double that by the end of the season, or if he's going to hit 10. And that's exactly what you need from your players in the squad. So he's performing, outside of what anyone else would have thought.
Yeah, he's definitely looking like he's going to be a team of the season contender if all things considered. And I mean, at the moment, there isn't really a first team recognised striker at West Ham with the sale of Sebastian Haller in January. So you've got Mikel Antonio filling in there, who's also the right wing, stroke right mid, stroke right back, stroke right wing back, stroke everywhere on the pitch. And then also players like Jared Bowen and Yarmolenko have been filling that position. So without a striker, considering the majority of their goals have been coming from the midfield, I mean, the midfield's got to be doing something, right?
Yeah, I mean, like last season, I think we saw Antonio step into a new role. Haller wasn't performing at all. I think that move for Haller was needed. And Antonio stepped in and was like, yeah, this guy's going to be our striker going forward. And it's working. Antonio's got 6 goals as well. And obviously, Souček is filling in for the midfield. And I think it's going to be that midfield is going to be a big topic going forward in this podcast, that midfield that's just had some heavy reinforcements, although I would not like to admit it. But yeah, going forward, that midfield is working a charm for the Irons.
Yeah, it is doing a significant job. And you mentioned there with Mikel Antonio being their second highest goal scorer with 6 goals in the Prem. And then third on that list is Jared Bowen, normally playing off the right, sometimes going forward a little bit, drifting more towards the front, but 5 goals for Jared Bowen this season. You can also find Thomas Souček ahead in the aerial battles won. He's first for aerial battles won at West Ham with 146. So I mean, he's going defensively and he's scoring the goals as well. I mean, if you saw in West Ham's 2-1 win the other day, you know, that picture of like a warrior version of Souček with the blood pouring down his face, still getting up and performing like an absolute titan. So 146 aerial battles won for him. Second on that list was the January departure Sebastian Haller with 67. And then third on this list is Angelo Ogbonna with 51. So in terms of goals and defensive contributions, Souček really is that guy. He really is the one that's pulling these strings. How can you sum up such a crucial player? And also, do you think that they're potentially at risk of clubs kind of looking at him and thinking, we could do with a player like this in our squad?
Of course, I think as soon as they made it permanent, as soon as they made it a permanent deal, everyone was looking to West Ham thinking, oh yeah, that was a great signing. We need that. After a bit of time, I think this summer people, teams are going to be looking at that guy. And in terms of summing him up, he's a tall player. He's what, 6'4", and that kind of sums up his aerial duels one. And then he's just got the technical ability of someone that's about 5'10". So he's kind of an all-round player. It's mental. Like he's got the long legs to make those defensive tackles, and he's also got the technical ability to go up front and score. I think he scored 3 headers, so that adds on to his aerial duels. But yeah, he's kind of one of the most complete packages in that West Ham team.
Yeah. Onto a little kind of area in the statistics where they're kind of struggling a little bit. I'm gonna talk about their assists. Obviously, fourth in the Premier League, so they are winning games. They're scoring goals. They're winning games. But at the moment, with assists, their top guy for assists at the club is actually Aaron Cresswell at left back, with only 6. And that's an amazing output for a left back. But when you think of all the creative players that they've got, creative on paper players that they've got at West Ham, could be a little bit concerning. I mean, second on that list is Benrahma, who they obviously made permanent in January after the loan move, which I think was a really good signing from Brentford. And then Mikel Antonio, who's got 3. So I think that assists and creativity is maybe an area where they're lacking, which is something I will go on to a little bit later. But in terms of Cresswell at left back, I personally don't think Cresswell gets credited enough. If obviously if you're talking about in the England conversation that he has caps for England, but I don't necessarily think he's in the forward planning for the Euros necessarily. He could well be start to include in that in conversation if he keeps up the good form. But I think right now Southgate's favoured Chilwell and obviously Luke Shaw in the best form of his life probably still take the cake for England. But as left backs go for West Ham, I think he's a very good player. I think he's a good West Ham servant. I'm not sure about you.
Yeah, he's definitely one of those players that's become sort of part of the furniture at West Ham. I think he will probably stay there for the remainder of his career. I think that's a safe bet, but potentially to become like sort of Mark Noble status of legend at that club. Especially if West Ham are starting to pull out the victories, or as they are now, West Ham fans are gonna remember this season. They're gonna remember the players that they had, and some of these players are gonna get the reputation like Dimitri Payet had when they had that phenomenal season back. I think it was like 2016, 2017, and they're gonna West Ham fans are gonna absolutely adore these players. Antonio, Benrahma, and especially Cresswell, because he was here before. He was here through the struggle. When West Ham were fighting for relegation. So it's definitely a step up for Cresswell, especially if his attacking output is as good as his defensive output.
Yeah. I mean, going on more talking about the kind of creativity and keeping the ball moving, obviously Cresswell's leading with assists, but the top passer at the club is the highly rated Declan Rice with 1,207 passes. Second on that list is Cresswell himself with 1,178. And then third on that list was actually Souček again with 987. So those 3 players have been instrumental to West Ham's creativity this season. But Declan Rice being in that role and being so important, you've got to think, obviously, there's going to be a lot of clubs that are going to be going in for him, which is something, again, we will mention a little bit later. But how important is Declan Rice in terms of keeping the ball moving in that holding midfield role?
Well, he's the anchor, isn't he? If this West Ham team is a ship, then he's the anchor. He's the iron anchor. If you pardon the pun. but he's going to be keeping this ship, steady. He's the one that the ball goes to in order to start the plays. He's got great passing ability. He's got great vision, and I think sometimes he can go under the radar as one of the most important players on the pitch. Obviously, his
Mm,
value is shooting up. He's a very young player. I think he's just turned 22, and we're highly
mm,
rating him like this. And he's got a good 6 years until he hits his prime, and hopefully he doesn't hit that prime too early, like those sorts of other promising England talent, like Michael Owen and Wayne Rooney, those that hit their prime way too early. And I think that with Declan Rice, he's going to want to keep this steady. So who knows whether the transfers are going to come in? But for now, I think West Ham are going to want to keep him potentially, unless they receive a massive fee. And
mm.
he's just going to be one of their key players. It's so weird to think that he was born like 4 months before me.
Yeah,
I'm getting
it is
old.
mental. It is. He's just honestly such a good young talent in the league, and he's I think he's had to fight to prove himself recently. I think he's had a lot of doubters, but this season he's definitely coming into his own, and I think a lot of the people who were previously criticizing are now in his favor. So and that shows as well. He's also the leader in interceptions as well. He's keeping the ball going forward, and he's also leading with interceptions at West Ham with 47 interceptions. And then second on that list again is the usual suspect Thomas Souček, again with 37. And third on this list is Vladimir Kufal at the right back position, who we will talk a little bit about more in a second. Another very good addition at West Ham. But again, intercepting, passing, keeping the ball moving. Souček and Declan Rice as a midfield duo have been pretty solid. Pretty solid. So I think that it will be crucial for them to keep both of those players. I think they might be able to hang on to one, but I don't think maybe they'll be able to hang on to Declan Rice, in my honest opinion. But I've mentioned Vladimir Kufal as well on that list, leading in tackles as well. Vladimir Kufal is top of that list for 53, and Declan Rice 48, Souček 47. Kufal's obviously been a fantastic import at right back, fellow countryman with Souček. But seeing Declan Rice and Souček again on that list, it just makes me realize just how important those players are. Really important to the team.
Definitely, I think West Ham made a lot of great signings in the summer, and they've invested well in these transfer windows. With the signing of Ben Rama, signings of Souček, Kufal coming in, their wing backs are very important. We mentioned Cresswell just a couple of minutes ago with the most assists, and Kufal is they rely on a wing back that can pass. I think the wing backs are
Mm.
since Trent and Robertson have been introduced into the Premier League and the style of play that Liverpool were playing last season, the importance of wing backs has gone up dramatically. I think the play from wing backs has gone up massively. I think that's the way that the Premier League is going towards. Relying on some of the attacking output from the wing backs, overlapping wing backs. So I think Kufal is one of those players that's going to be really, really like his value is going to shoot up.
Yeah.
He's 28, and I don't know whether it's going to be that time for him to. I mean, he could end his career in West Ham, especially if they're going into this sort of position of continuing onto like a European push.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of their players this season have been so instrumental to getting to the position where they're in now. But if we have a look at their preferred lineup, Lucas Fabianski is still the preferred goalkeeper in goal. Absolute years of Premier League experience, pretty solid. Getting on a bit now, which is something I will mention a little bit later. But at the back, Kufal and Cresswell, as we mentioned for the fullbacks, and the centre-back positions have often rotated. Issa Diop is one of their key players. They cannot lose him, in my opinion. But Craig Dawson, very good this season so far. Angelo Ogbonna coming in and doing the job. They've kind of been on like a trio of rotation, those kind of three there. Declan Rice and Souček in the midfield, with often a lot of the time Jared Bowen and now recently the loan signing of Jesse Lingard coming in and playing either in the centre or on the left. Pablo Fornals also, I saw the face there, I saw that face. And often Pablo Fornals either in the middle or on the side, and often Mikel Antonio or Yarmolenko at front. So it's that 4-2-3-1 that we've seen Moyes try to implement this season, which is often at times a David Moyes preferred formation. And it's working for them. It's working at the moment. So I mean, why would he change anything?
If it's not broke, don't fix it. That's the old saying, right? And
Yeah,
it was kind of broken at the beginning of the season, so he fixed it. He brought in a lot of good players, and unfortunately, Jesse Lingard stayed in the Premier League for me, and he's still clogging up my news feeds on Instagram and Twitter, and I just keep seeing his face. I keep seeing his face.
he's just a boy.
I keep seeing his
He's just
dumb
a boy. He's just
celebrations.
fantastic.
I keep seeing his dumb celebrations. I keep seeing his dumb face. I don't like it.
So you can't excuse it though. I mean, he's gone there. I mean, I always knew it was going to be a good move, but I mean, he's offered them a bit more of a push going into this second half of the season. And out of the 25 games that West Ham have played this season, they've had 13 wins, 6 losses, with the rest making up draws. They've scored 39 goals with 29 goals conceded, and they've kept 9 clean sheets. So there's still room for improvement in their overall game, but we've seen a drastic improvement from West Ham this season. And obviously, like I said, in the summer, I think it was 47 million they spent, 47, 48 million that they spent. And they had an income of 40 million. So they lost out by about 6 million, but the players they brought in have been absolutely instrumental. But they've also had a couple of key outgoings, which I think at the start of the season did turn a few heads quite a bit. Obviously, the main one that we'll probably talk about, obviously from a January perspective, was Sebastian Haller. And they bought him in for, I think it was around 45 million, which I think is their transfer record, and sold him for 27 million to Ajax. Now, whether that's good business, 27 million, 20 million they sold him for. It wasn't even 27, it was 20 million. So whether we can argue whether that was good business or not, I think they lost out on him big time. It 100% wasn't working for him. He was an interesting player on paper and was a great addition in the Bundesliga, but it wasn't working for him, was it?
I think both of the duo from, I think they came from Frankfurt, right? Both of that, but
Yeah.
that duo, it kind of flopped, didn't it? Jovic and Haller both were very underwhelming. But Haller coming to like the lesser team, he came to West Ham, who aren't exactly giants of English football. Let's be real, and he couldn't perform. It could have been because he didn't have that strike partner again. To give him that service to score goals. And whether he picks up some form in Ajax, who knows? It could be his league. It's a slower league. That's definitely for sure. The Premier League is arguably one of the fastest paced leagues in the world. And if you don't have that quick, I mean, Haller turns like a bus. He's kind of like Lukaku. He turns like a bus, and you've got to have that quick feet agility to be able to play on the ball style of the Premier League. So I don't think it was a great signing for West Ham. I thought it might have worked. Maybe shifting back towards a Lukaku type player. The target man, but it just doesn't work in the Premier League anymore. The target man sort of era of football is kind of dead in my opinion. I think the running behind sort of mentality of wingers and a fast striker is kind of, or maybe just the idea of your main striker is kind of dying too, because it's not exactly working at Chelsea too much. It's not working at Liverpool, that's for sure. So maybe we're going towards a winger striker sort of era, and I think it was time to move on from. I think it was time to move on from Haller, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one other player which left at the start of the season, which caused massive kind of outcry, was Grady Diangana, who went to West Brom. Now, I mean, he scored in his debut for West Brom. Has looked a bit quiet in whole at West Brom. Obviously, West Brom having a difficult season. You can go and we had a West Brom episode not too long ago. Go and check that out. But when he left the club, I'm not sure if you remember this, if you can cast your mind back, it was the captain, Mark Noble, who took to Twitter and very angrily condemned the transfer. And it's like, this is your club captain going absolutely bonkers over the deal, because obviously he's a young player. He's only 22. Left winger, speedy left winger, and a decent little player, will probably have a good career ahead of him. But yeah, West Ham were not happy to, or should I say, Mark Noble was not happy to let him go. But I mean, at the time, it was crazy to see because it's your captain undermining the club, isn't it? I mean, a lot of the time, that's the start of an absolutely catastrophic season, but they were able to turn it around. They've been pretty good. But I don't know what you made of Mark Noble doing that.
I mean, Mark Noble's the captain, and I think he knows what's right for the team, and I 100% agree with him. You know,
Yeah.
it was crazy to let Dean Garner go, and you say he could go on to have that promising career, but I think it's if he gets relegated with West Brom, his career is going to go downhill. You look at these young players that have had a lot of untapped potential that have been relegated to the Championship, and their potential, their ceiling comes way down. Clubs don't get
Mm.
interested anymore, and they end up riding out average careers. You know, they end up turning into Glenn Murray. They end up turning into Jesse Lingard. They're still
Oh,
good
Jesse
players.
Lingard.
They're still good players. Okay, they're still good players, but they don't reach the heights that they were touted for. And I think that's the difference between why they should have kept him. And you know, London's a great place for him to stay. Even if he came off the
Yeah.
bench and delivered some outstanding performances, I think Dean Garner, it was a wrong move for him to accept the contract from West Brom as well.
Yeah. It was dodgy on both ends, but certainly was one which the captain wasn't happy about, but one that he was a little bit more quiet about. Robert Snodgrass went to West Brom as well, a little bit quieter about that one. We also saw Jack Wilshere get released from his contract, and he's now playing his trade for Bournemouth.
That is an example of how Dean Garner could go.
Yeah,
If
well,
he-
yeah,
if he gets-
100%. That's an example.
If he gets relegated with West Brom, that he could be the next Jack Grealish. Not Jack Grealish, Jack
Yeah.
Wilshere. I apologise, Mr. Grealish. Don't get me with your
Whoa.
greasy hair. Don't get me with your greasy hair.
Then the other main outgoing, obviously, it's a loan transfer at the moment, but I think it will probably be either made permanent to this club or elsewhere. Was Felipe Anderson going out on loan to Porto? Obviously, when Felipe Anderson came in to the Premier League, there was a lot of hype around him. There was a lot of hype. He was playing his trade over at Lazio, and there was time and time again he was linked with the top clubs. And when West Ham got him, it was kind of, the world kind of stopped. It was kind of crazy. But I think he's been a good player for them, but has ultimately maybe again not hit the heights that he was maybe rated for. So going and getting a move to a top club like Porto outside of the Premier League over in Portugal, I think it was interesting for him, a good chance to kind of kickstart his career again. But I think for West Ham's sake, I don't know how much he's going to really offer them going forward in the future. I think he's probably not enjoying his time there too much. It might be good to say goodbye to him, because there's ways that you can use that money. You can get a bit of money for him, and there's ways you can use that money. So I think it was probably going to be the right decision.
Yeah, I think they could potentially get maybe 25 to 30 million for him. Whether Porto will want to pay that, especially in pandemic times. You know, pandemic money is kind of, you know, you spend 30 million and it's essentially 60 million. So players are kind of going for less than they're actually wanting to go for. And I think his market value is around 16 million. He's 27. He's about to hit his prime. And he's kind of, I think for me, he kind of didn't fit the mold of a West Ham type of player. He's way too flamboyant in the way that he plays and in that term. But I think that for me, it was kind of a move that was dead in the water as soon as he moved to the Premier League. Maybe if he'd have moved to like a Manchester City or some team that rewards that style of play that he offers. But for me, I think Felipe Anderson will probably want to move to Porto and earn some success there and have a bit more of a career resurgence than spending it in probably, well, according to the table, they are the best team in London, but we all know that that's not the case.
Yeah, no, I totally see what you mean. It goes on to giving you my kind of projection to what could take West Ham forward. So I've come up with a little kind of list of players to maybe sell and bring in, and I want to know your opinions. I want to kind of talk through it. So I think there'll be a few other players that will definitely go out on loan again, and I think there'll be some players that they'll definitely be selling, which are a little bit lower ranked. But in terms of the higher ranking players, I don't think they're going to keep Declan Rice this season. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's a shame, but obviously I think Chelsea are going to want to go all in for him. I think United will be looking at him. I think City will be looking at him, but I think Chelsea will probably be the destination because he's a Chelsea boy at heart. Now, the fee for Declan Rice is a little bit harder to negotiate because West Ham are not going to want to let him go cheap. but he's valued at roughly around the 50 million mark, around just over 50 million, just below 50 million. That's what he's ranked at. You often pay the English tax if you want to sign an English player from an English club, not to mention from a London club to a London club, like direct rivals. So it could get a bit, it could go anywhere, in my opinion, from like 70 looking up to around 90 million. I think they're going to have to pay the heights for him. And I think it'll probably be worth it. I think he is a good player. I mean, it might be a little bit dicey based on the fee, but the inflation now is this the current situation we're in, isn't it? I mean, that's just football right now.
Yeah, and you saying the English tax made me want to sing the Only Fools and Horses theme, just about Declan Rice. All English tax, no VAT.
Yeah.
Anyways, I shan't offend anyone with my singing any longer. But yeah, Declan Rice is one of those players that could go for as much as 100 million maybe if Chelsea were like as desperate as they are right now, and they could milk Chelsea for all they're worth at this point. It's happened before. It has happened before. Chelsea have been rinsed for cash, and it's their own fault because they've got an owner that's got that money that's willing to spend it. And if Declan Rice is having the season like he is this season, he's probably gonna be on the radar of Chelsea. Him and Kante in that midfield is something that Chelsea fans are going to want. Get rid of Jorginho, get rid of Kovacic, and bring Declan Rice in, who's just about to turn 23, and a new lease of life into this Chelsea team. Add a bit more creativity, allow Kante to push up a little bit. I think that would be the ideal move for Chelsea. Would it be the ideal move for West Ham? Yeah, because they can invest that in other places. Look how they invested it this season. Ben Rama, Jesse Lingard, Souček. They've brought in these players. They obviously know where they want to improve. Let them go for it.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that. I mean, I think it would be a huge loss for West Ham, but we're at a stage now where we already know that lesser clubs in the Premier League, I say that like the top six, even really the traditional six, even matters anymore, which it doesn't, because the Premier League's just wide open these days. But obviously, the pull of the Premier League now is so powerful that players don't always have to go to a City, to a Liverpool, to a United. They can go and look at other clubs in the league and be like, wow, I can have a really good career here. So I think clubs like West Ham and Leicester, they don't have to sell if they don't want to. And we saw well, I say Leicester because obviously look what happened with the Harry Maguire deal. They got the most money they could for him. West Ham are going to do the same for Declan Rice. It's talent. They're going to want to get the best money for their best players. And then obviously the other player that I think which is going to be a bit of a fee that they'll get money for is probably Felipe Anderson. You said around 25 to 30. I think it's more looking around the 20 million mark, 20 potentially going to 25, just because his pull has gone down quite a lot recently. But if they sold those two players at, for example, say 70 and 20 million, they're already looking at 130 million. Based on what they spent in the summer, which is what I've went off, they might have the money to start this season. They started, last season they spent around 40 million they spent. And I think this season, if we take that same fee, let's say they have 40 million to spend, plus that 70 million, you're looking at 130 million to spend on some crucial signings.
Quick maths.
And the quick maths. And the way I worked it out, I think what's needed at the club, I think they need a striker, 100%. They need to bolster the centre-backs a little bit. I think they need a goalkeeper because Lucas Fabianski is 35 now, and his contract does run out in the summer. And I think they also need a creative. So I'm going to give you a few different options here and see what you think about these. So we'll start at the top down. They got rid of Haller and they didn't bring in a striker, which is a very odd move, but it's doing okay so far. But they can't continue without a recognised striker. So they're going to have to sign someone to score the goals. And I went to the Serie A. I went to the Serie A to look at a couple of players. I think the Serie A for strikers, I think they've got an awful lot of underrated players. I've got two people on this list. One is my preferred option. The other one is a secondary. But I want to see what you think. Well, I'll start off with Atalanta's Luis Muriel. Probably a player known for his speed, mainly, if you're a FIFA player. But at the moment, he's valued at around the 20 million mark. I think you'd probably have to pay around 25 million to get him. But he's 29 years old, and in the Serie A this season, he's had 14 goals and 5 assists in 21 appearances. That is not bad at all That is not bad at all. He's up there with some of the top scorers in the Serie A. I think because of his age and the club that Atalanta are, if you're not familiar with the Italian Football League, Atalanta are a club which have been rising astronomically recently. And I think, he's one of their better players, so they'd have to, pay the fee. But I also think that he could potentially be at risk to be one of the guys to leave. And my other option, a little bit more money they'd have to spend here, again, Serie A, Andrea Bellotti at Torino. So he's an Italian striker, 27 years of age. And this season alone, he's had 11 goals and 6 assists in 22 appearances. And roughly to get him out, I think they value him at around 35 million. I think you'd probably have to pay around 40 to probably get him out of the club. Because again, a real big player for Torino, probably their biggest player. So out of Luis Muriel and Bellotti, 2 kind of different strikers, I'd love to know your opinion on who you think out of those 2 maybe they could go for.
Oh, you're putting me between a rock and a hard place here. Bellotti, it's like you say, they're 2 completely different types of players, the 2 different styles of strikers. One has a style more catered to the Premier League, but I think one has that scoring ability more. Bellotti has a few more years on him. I think that would be the main goal of West Ham. It wouldn't be a fix now. It'd be a fix now and going on. For me, if I was the one making the investment, it would be Andrea Bellotti.
Yeah.
Based on those 2 years that he has on Muriel, I think if it was a couple of years ago, Muriel would be my guy, 100%. If they'd assigned him from, maybe Sevilla. It was Sevilla, wasn't it?
I believe so, yeah.
They're going Atlanta going from Sevilla, and I think that if they would have had him from Sevilla or maybe even Sampdoria from about 2016, I think that West Ham would have a very good striker at the moment. But I think if he was to come to the Premier League with all this big hype, I think it wouldn't turn out so well. Whereas Bellotti, I think, has a lot more to prove. Or would Bellotti just become another Haller? Who is to know? But I think for me, Bellotti would be my go-to there.
Yeah, I think 100%. I definitely agree with you with your reasoning there. I think Luis Muriel is my favorite just based on the fee and also the fact that he is just having such a good output. But it would be really interesting to see either of those players in the Premier League, I think. But some interesting striking options potentially they could have a look at. So that kind of fills my striker position. If we go down and have a look at the defensive position, although the centre backs have not been terrible at West Ham, they still are conceding. But I think, that's just the quality of the Premier League. But Issa Diop, 24 years old, he's crucial. And constantly, he's been looked at by loads of other big clubs. So I think it's very critical that they do keep Issa Diop at that club. And Ogbonna is a very good experienced centre-back. And Craig Dawson on loan from Watford, he's been playing a lot of football. And he's 30 years old. He's been doing quite well for West Ham. So I think they should try and make that Craig Dawson deal permanently. I don't think Watford may just miss out on coming up into the Premier League this season in the Championship. So I think that Craig Dawson could potentially be bought for the right fee. He's valued at around 3.5 million on Transfermarkt, which is, where a lot of we go to get our kind of valuations. So I think you'd have to pay a little bit more to get him out of Watford, although they put him on loan, he is one of their better players, definitely defensively. So I'd probably say anywhere between 5 up to maybe 7 million you'd have to pay for him. Around 5 is what I put. But I think he'd be really smart to bring in. But my actual defensive signing, which I think would be an interesting one to go for and pay an actual fee, I went to Ligue 1. Because Ligue 1, in terms of young defenders, which we both noticed, we've looked so many times when we've been looking at clubs, Ligue 1 they just literally chain out young defenders. So I've had a look at 20 years old Mohamed Sickerman from Strasbourg. And if you're not familiar with this guy, he's made 19 appearances in Ligue 1 this season. And genuinely, he's one of the most highly touted centre-backs so far that they've got in that particular league. He's valued at around 20 to 25 million. But the reason I highlighted this guy is that he can play centre-back, right back, and central defensive midfield, much like a certain player who's likely to kind of be on his way out this season. So I think what a way to replace Declan Rice than by bringing in a younger Declan Rice. I think that's a very interesting way to go about it. And the guy's been pumping out loads of appearances. He's been pumping out clean sheets as well. But obviously, Strasbourg are not one of the top clubs in Ligue 1, but Ligue 1 is just dispersed with young talent. So I think before a club like PSG come in for him, which is just, it could easily happen. I think it would be really good to get him over to the Premier League. He's obviously got Issa Diop, fellow countryman, already at the club. I think they could form a good little centre-back pairing, as well as the experience of Dawson and Ogbonna could really help him grow as a player. And I won't lie to you, before doing a bit of research, he wasn't one I was too familiar with. But based on that output, a young centre-back, that could be good for the club, couldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I think any time you invest in a young centre back, it's more than likely it's gonna pay off. You give him that room to grow, and West Ham has proven time and time again it can produce young players. Look at Declan Rice. Look at Frank Lampard. You look at Rio Ferdinand. And he's going to want to try and come in exactly. Diop being French is going to help him integrate into the team. Diop can, even though Diop's young himself, he can help this other young player come into the side and help. I think it's great to bring in Craig Dawson for that small fee, and then bring in this young prodigy as well into the side. I think that would be great. It adds to the depth. You're spending what, 25, 30 million on two centre backs, and one of them is having a great season. And obviously Dawson can come off the bench next year if Seakerman is to come in, or Ogbonna wants to play and Seakerman off the bench. You've just got that depth. Then you've got that ability to rotate, and therefore less potential injuries. A lot more in terms of maybe going for the cups. And they've got quite a strong squad. So I'm all for this. I think it's a great idea from your big brain, Mr. Brody.
So yeah, Craig Dawson and Simkin, they're two centre backs which could potentially add a lot of more going forward into West Ham's next season. But if we have a look at the goalkeeper position next, kind of doing this in a bit of a weird order, but goalkeeper was the next position I really focused on. So Fabianski barrels of Premier League experience. He's 35 years old and his contract runs out in the summer. The first bit of business I think that would be smart is signing him to a year extension. I think he's still got a little bit more to give. I think they need to look towards the future, but I think signing him to a year extension just whilst they really solidify this goalkeeper's position going forward, I think would be a smart idea. But the keeper that I looked at, I actually went down to the Championship. I was interested to see, just out of curiosity, to see if any goalkeepers there were doing a good job. And one of the keepers that was impressing me was a goalkeeper called Freddie Woodman, who is the starting keeper at Swansea at the moment. And he's a loan player from Newcastle. That's the parent club. And if there's a club at the moment which doesn't need three goalkeepers going for the starting position, it's Newcastle. Because obviously Dubravka and then a rejuvenated Cardalo for some reason. And you've also got this guy that I'm looking at, Freddie Woodman, and he's at the moment, I think he's 22 years old, 22, 24 years old. He's valued at roughly around the 6 million mark. So I think 9 million would be a good fee for him. And in 28 appearances in the Championship so far this season, he's had 16 clean sheets, which I think it's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really too in tune with the Championship, or I'm actually not in tune with this goalkeeper at all. So I'm kind of just going off what you're saying here, and to have that many clean sheets in a league that's known for heavy scorelines is quite impressive, especially for a team like Swansea that they came down from the Premier League and were kind of etching to go back in, and they haven't been able to. So I think that it would be a great signing for them.
Yeah, I think it would be a really interesting one. I think there's obviously some more renowned keepers they could go for, but it's investing in the future. He's a young Welsh international, and obviously as well, they're not breaking the bank too much. And I think with the experience of someone like Fabianski as well there to give him a hand in coming up into the squad, I think it would be a really interesting move. Whether Newcastle would want to let him go, because obviously he is a young prospect, but again, like a situation like Dean Henderson at United, I mean, he's going to want to be the starting keeper soon. So I think this guy's going to be wanting to have a club fairly soon that he can actually call his home. But I think that would be a really good, interesting thing for the goalkeepers. I signed Lucas Fabianski and maybe look at Freddie Woodman as well. And then my final area that I looked at was a creative position. Because we mentioned when we were looking at our statistics that West Ham, in terms of assists, there's not too many assists going in there. So they need a bit of a creative spark. They've got obviously Benrahma, they've got Jesse Lingard, and I don't think they're going to sign Jesse Lingard permanently. I think United will look at this rejuvenation and try and it'd still be a substitute at United, but they'll try and include him more in the season going forward. Maybe they'll sell him, but I think we'll probably hang on to him just for a little bit longer. But in terms of a creative, like Jesse Lingard, they've got Lanzini, Benrahma, they've got Bowen, players that can create a spark sometimes, but I think they need a designated attacking-based midfielder who can do this. So I think if they sold Declan Rice, they could opt for one holding midfielder and two kind of other midfielders in the middle. So I think that my personal choice to go for, I've picked two players. I've got one guy from the Bundesliga and one guy from the Serie A again. So the first one I'll introduce you to is a guy called Daichi Kamada from Japan. He's 24 years old and he plays for Frankfurt. In 21 appearances in the Bundesliga, he's had 11 assists and 3 goals. That's a good output. That's a good output for halfway through the season. That's a very good output, and he's probably going to raise that even further. Only 24 years old, and he joins a massive host of players that have come from Asia as a continent recently who have been absolutely taking world football by storm. You've seen, obviously, Son, who's just a king. You've got Minamino, who's on loan at Southampton, having a good time at the moment, scoring goals. There's players all over, and there's players in the Bundesliga as well, especially a lot of Asian players in the Bundesliga who are making a name for themselves.
Hwang Yi-chan,
another great guy. But for around 20 million, I think they'd probably maybe have to pay a little bit more because he is one of Frankfurt's better players. But I think he'd be a really interesting player to go for. And then my counter to that, over in the Serie A, is a guy called Mattia Zaccagni, I believe. Zaccagni. Excuse my pronunciation there. My Italian isn't A1. But the guy plays for Hellas Verona. I think he was a bit further on, a bit longer in the tooth. I think he was maybe around 25. But he's made 22 appearances in the Serie A this season with 7 goals and 5 assists. So pretty well-rounded, not as prominent, but I think around 18 million would be enough to maybe tempt Verona to get him over to the Prem. And I think although he'd be an interesting player to look at, I think my first option of Kamada would be really cool to bring in. That kind of output at the moment. And Frankfurt are a team which do pump out a lot of good players. And good players on face. Obviously, the last guy they bought from Frankfurt didn't work out too well. But you never know. They could get a second chance. What do you think about these creatives, Reese? That's kind of the last area I've been looking at.
I think they definitely need they need that creative spark. They're going to lose Jesse Lingard. It's bound to see whether Man United keep him or whether West Ham could come back for him, but they would like to get someone younger than him. I think if someone was to come in, Jesse Lingard might be on his way to the Serie A if Manchester United receive the right fee. I do really like the idea of bringing in a young. I think Kamada would be a great acquisition for them. Think that would be amazing. You mentioned his output. He's 24 years old. He's turning 20. He'll turn 25 before the next Premier League season starts. So if they sign him in the summer, they'll get someone who's had enough experience, but he's still got room to grow. And I think that's a really key area for West Ham to try and improve on.
Yeah. And I think if you looked at all of my personal top ranking ones, so if I go through the list that I've gone for of Kamada, of Woodman, of Fabian's got a year extension, of Simakan, Craig Dawson permanently, and also of Luis Muriel, you're looking at a total fee of around, if I'm not mistaken, 84 million. And I said at the start of this, 40 million pounds that they may already have in the bank, plus 70 million being sold for Declan Rice and potentially 20 for Felipe Anderson. That's roughly 130 million. And even with those expenditures, you're looking at a 46 million pound profit. I think that would be a really good way to see West Ham progress. I think because right now, this is the problem. Clubs have great individual seasons. And it's like right now they're playing some fantastic football. But after the next season, how are you going to build on that? How are you going to keep it going? And if they have a plan like this, if they show the ambition, I think it can happen. They have to lose some players in the process, but, there's always going to be sacrifices when trying to make a top Premier League club. But, they're marketable. They have a huge fan base. They have a big stadium. They're in London. Why not push West Ham to be a bigger club in the Premier League? And they've got we've seen it before. They've had good seasons. And right now, credit to David Moyes. He's got them playing the way he wants it. I mean, he's had difficulty this season. He's definitely had his club hit with coronavirus. He's had coronavirus himself, which meant he was restricted to, managing from a computer screen at one point, which was, a very alien thought only until this season. But fair play to him and fair play to the team. I mean, something's going right, isn't it?
They're gelling, they're clicking, and that's kind of what you need as a team at the moment. They're taking advantage of those teams that aren't playing well. Liverpool and Chelsea and Arsenal and Spurs. They're all playing really badly, and I think that West Ham have a chance here to create some history. They could go into that qualifying stage of the Champions League, which for me, if I was a West Ham fan, I'd be thrilled.
That would be absolutely incredible, wouldn't it? Definitely challenging for Europa League at this rate, but why not push on forward? Why not dream big? But we would love to know what you guys think about West Ham. Obviously, as always, you can get in touch with us in the comments below. You can get a hold of us at Pundits Average on Twitter, Average Pundits on Facebook and Instagram. If you want to get in touch and potentially be on the podcast even, it's theaveragepundits@outlook.com as always. But we would love to know your opinions on West Ham. They've had a great season so far. But there's one more piece of business that we have to do, don't we? Yeah.
Drum rolls. It's time for the reveal.
Yeah, I think we'd firstly like to thank Mystic Mystery Boxes for partnering with us, and we hope to do some business with them again in the future. And if you aren't already involved in the competition or whatever, you want to make sure you follow those guys because they do a great variation of mystery shirt boxes. And if you want to get your hands on one as well, very affordable, very good prices. So go and have a check out of those guys. But I will take it to you, Reese, if you want to announce the winner of the competition. It's been a blast.
It has, and we made sure to pick a winner that we thought was fair. He'd entered, or they'd entered. So I think that. So we've kind of done this I say kind of. We have done this in a fair manner. So the winner is. Maybe we can add some drum rolls in post edit. It's Dan Crabtree. Dan Crabtree, congratulations! You have won yourself a mystery football shirt, courtesy of our pals at Mystic Mystery Boxes. Apologies. So we will be in contact shortly. Hopefully you are thrilled with the decision that we have made, and hopefully you guys can be in with a shot of winning a mystery shirt next time. But these Mystic Mystery Boxes, they are on sale. Go and check them out as well. They have their own Instagram. They go check them out on Instagram, and then there should be a link in their bio to go and take you to buy one of their mystery boxes.
There should be indeed. So a massive well done to Dan there. And thank you to everyone who did enter in the giveaway. It's something that we're going to be wanting to do a little bit more of in the future. So keep your eyes peeled because, it could be anyone next time. So thank you very much for entering. Thank you very much for watching and streaming the Pundits. As always, if you're listening on Spotify and Apple Music, please keep it up and follow us on those streaming platforms. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. The support recently has been fantastic. And we're actually on track very soon to break over 10,000 views on our channel, which is a mind-blowing concept considering, we started this in September 2019 and we're in a really good position now. We had our first year anniversary and, we're going forward and we're looking to progress and make more interesting content in the future. But as always, thank you very much for joining me, Reese.
No worries. It's great to finally have had the conclusion of the Mystic Mystery Box giveaway. West Ham being covered, they're on the form of their life, and I think that we've got some exciting weeks of football ahead.
Yeah. Well, there we go, guys. Thank you very much as always, and we will see you next time.
For the latest football content, subscribe to The Average Pundits on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite streaming service and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Don't forget to like and share this video.